Good morning, people of St Elizabeth's. It's lovely to be with you in this way this morning. Welcome to any others who may be looking in. It's great to have you with us in this way, whilst our churches can't be open for public worship at this time. I do hope that you are keeping well. If you're not part of our round robin email, a way that we're trying to keep in contact with one another at this time, and would like to do so, just go to our website www.sainte.co.uk to find out details of how you may do that. Today is Palm Sunday, and if we were meeting together, each one of us would have received one of these, a palm cross, a symbol to help us remember that Jesus rode into Jerusalem as our divine King. Now, giving out palm crosses will have to wait until we are able to be together once more. But hopefully you found your palm cross from last year, or found something that symbolises your palm cross, or like Christine Swanber-Nielsen have been really creative and made your own paper palm crosses. You can see a picture of her wonderful creations on our Facebook page. We are being encouraged to place something in our windows that just says to our local communities that we are praying for them. Maybe your palm cross or a homemade sign, maybe something that you can do during Holy Week to be able to represent that. So first, our reading, which comes from Matthew chapter 21. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. "Say to the daughter of Zion, see, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, placed their cloaks on them, and Jesus sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of them and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Jesus entered the temple area and drove out all those who were selling and buying there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den for robbers." The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the teachers of the law saw the wonderful things he did, and the children shouting in the temple area, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant. "Do you hear what these children are saying?" they asked him. "Yes," replied Jesus. "Have you never read, 'From the lips of children and infants you have ordained praise'?" And he left them and went out to the city of Bethany, where he spent the night. So Jesus enters into the city of Jerusalem with his followers, riding on a donkey. And this reading marks the beginning of our liturgical journey into Holy Week, culminating in the events of Easter. Our journey this year through Holy Week should cause us to reflect on the readings that we will hear and read with a new and fresh intensity as we allow our present feelings and concerns to rub against those stories. Jesus rides into Jerusalem with his followers. For Jesus, the donkey wasn't the comic animal that we associate it with today. Now, in Jesus' culture, the donkey was to demonstrate a king riding in humility, coming into a city in peace. A king on a donkey is not a joke. It was an ancient symbol of peace, a sign of confidence. The alternative would have been to have seen Jesus arriving on a war charger of a horse. That would not be an image of hope. That would frankly be an image of God approaching Jerusalem as if to come in judgment. I'd much rather see the Son of God approach on a donkey, coming in peace to his people rather than on a battle horse. The waving of palms, or rather branches from trees, those cloaks spread too on the ground, those that did that following Jesus, people following Jesus, did so out of anticipation that the Son of God, arriving in Jerusalem, the religious and civic capital of Israel, that their world would shortly be changed in an instant. That was what many who were following Jesus were expecting to see, a sudden restoration of Israel's historic powers from the past, and the cleansing of the temple, with Jesus throwing out the money changers, was there to help reinforce that message. Change was coming. Although there were those looking on at Jesus' arrival, wondering what was going on, the group of followers who had journeyed with him from Galilee to Jerusalem were expecting something earth-shattering to happen. Of course, something earth-shattering did happen, but not in the manner that they were expecting. How quickly the gentle arrival of a king turned into Jesus' friends, watching him die, suffering on a cross, and feeling that all was completely lost. We will echo something of the disciples' journey into the darkness, as during the coming week our thoughts turn towards Maundy Thursday, with the story of Jesus' betrayal and the events of that first Good Friday, with Jesus' death. We have to journey through the dark times before we can begin to appreciate and contemplate the sheer amazement experienced by Jesus' first followers that first Easter morning as he resurrects from the dead. Again, we see that the Christian life engages with the reality of suffering. It cannot shy away from it. It must deal with it face on. Our journey through Holy Week will bring us face to face with suffering, and yet eventually also to hope. Sadly, however much we don't like suffering, it is part of the experience of having been created, and we cannot escape that. It is part of the mystery of life, which one day we will more fully understand. From this episode, we can see that Jesus willingly and knowingly enters into Jerusalem, coming as the peaceful king, yet knowing that events would overtake him and he would die suffering on a cross. This is God knowingly and willingly opening himself up to suffer, although he, as God, didn't need to do that. But through the act of fully entering into our human experience, hope is offered to those who trust and who respond to Jesus. In the context of our present situation, there will be many longing to see Jesus riding as if on a war horse, sorting everything out. Kapow! Just like that. Yet for Jesus to come with such force would mean imposing himself on many who would not want to know him, and that would mean judgment rather than acting out of grace. Rather, we see here Jesus coming with grace, with humility, arriving on a donkey, and open to take on suffering. And in so doing, we are able to understand that Jesus, is understanding our fears. The Easter story, that one moment which affects the whole of time, can help us to understand how God is with us and the world at the moment. A big question that Christians will be called upon to answer in coming weeks is, where was God when so many people suffered, when so many people died? Where was God? Where is God? He is there in the midst of it. Through him willingly and purposefully entering into suffering as the one event that affects all of time, so he stands alongside our suffering today. That is not a platitude. Rather, the God of all time understands our deepest fears and pain, because as the risen Jesus, who we will celebrate on Easter morning, and through his Spirit now, he is with us now. Where else is God in this? Acting through others with faith and with those of none. There are many stories emerging now, even from our own church community, of selfless acts of kindness towards one another. So where is God at this time? At work in us and at work through us. Our journey through Holy Week can be a very creative time, even during lockdown. Our situation can make us look at the Bible story through a different lens, a lens which can take us into that Easter story in new and perhaps deeper ways. From the story of Jesus entering to Jerusalem, let's recognise afresh that he comes in peace, on a donkey, and he willingly opens himself up to suffer. We have thought too how that means that God is very much with us now. As we journey through Holy Week, may we consider the events of that first Easter with new and fresh eyes. As we bring our present situation to rub alongside that story, may we discover hope in a new way, and may we give hope to the wider world around us too, both through our prayerful activity and through our practical actions.